Well, happy Monday. We're starting another week, and I'm glad that you are here with us. Yesterday we spent some time talking about the last part of the story of Jesus and the road to Emmaus. Now, you know the story. After the resurrection, the disciples don't know where Jesus is. They know the tomb's empty, can't find Jesus. Well, Jesus is walking with Cleopas and his friend on the way to Emmaus, which is about 7 miles from Jerusalem. The evening comes, it's dark. And Cleopas and his friends say to Jesus, why don't you stay and have dinner with us? And that way it'd be more safe. You don't want to travel at night by yourself. And so Jesus agrees. And then Luke tells us about Jesus and Cleopas and his friend having dinner. But Jesus changes it. The words used to describe the dinner with Cleopas and his friend are almost exactly what Jesus uses, how Luke describes the words of Jesus and the ministry of Jesus during the Lord's Supper. The supper on the road to Emmaus is almost verbatim the story of the Last Supper with Jesus and his disciples. And then Luke gives us this clue. It was in the breaking of the bread that they knew him. Now, a couple of thoughts. If you're like me, when you went to church as a little boy, and you would walk into the sanctuary and you would see the elements of the Lord's Supper at the front, and they would be under this big, big cloth, and you would see this white, imposing statue almost, and you knew, Lord's Supper. Now, what did it mean? One, it meant short sermon, because the pastor had to give everybody a few minutes to pass the bread and pass the cup, so you knew you were going to have a little shorter sermon, so you knew it was going to be a good Sunday. What Jesus gave his disciples on that Last Supper was not something that was to be celebrated occasionally, but was to be celebrated, remembered every time they did it. When you do this and remember me. Well, what was he doing? He was tearing bread. You tore bread at every meal. At every meal there'd be some kind of bread. And then somewhere you would reach for the bigger loaf and you would tear off your piece. Or if they handed you a small piece of bread, you would tear it in half. It was torn at every meal. It's not just the occasional times that we get together in the service, in the worship service, and share the Lord's Supper. It's every time you sit down with other brothers and sisters, with other friends, and you share a dinner. Christ is there, and we remember who he is and what he's done for us, and we know him in that conversation and in that midst where he makes himself known. Now, sadly, we live in a culture that has lost the family dinner. The interesting thing that happened with COVID is we rediscovered it. It's one of the main places in our everyday life that Jesus makes himself known. Don't rush through it. Don't neglect it. And then breaking of the bread, he made himself known. And it was just a dinner with Cleopas and his friend. It wasn't at a church. It was at a table. A table is just like in your kitchen, just like in mine. So today, find a time to get together with your family, people you love, and tear some bread. And when you do, remember the one in whose name you gather, and pray he will make himself known in the love that's around that table. I'll give you about 60 seconds to start thinking about this one, and I'll see you tomorrow.